Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing okay. My name is Jordan Lamar, the Singing Chef, and this is going to be my first how-to video for things done in the kitchen. So I hope everybody enjoys the video. I hope everybody starts subscribing, and hope this maybe gives you some insight on some things that you may not know or maybe could do differently in your home. Most of what I'm going to try to do is to take some things that most people wouldn't do in their home and show you simple ways of doing it, or even taking something that everybody does and maybe show you how to do it the proper way. I know when I cook with my grandparents or my parents and different things, I tend to cringe a little bit because I've seen how they always done it. Not that there's anything wrong with the way that they do it, but there is a better and a safer way. So just kind of transfer some of those things into your home. But anyway, today we're going to make duck de Marieta. This is kind of a basic roasted duck recipe, and what this does is it allows you to give you the duck that will help you make other duck recipes like Peking duck or duck confit or things like that. So it just gives you kind of a baseline of what to deal with. So if you've never had duck before, this is the perfect example of something that you should do. And it's not like chicken and it's not like turkey. It's a little different. And we're going to go through all that as we go further into the video. All right, let's get started. So, like I said a few seconds ago, ducks are a little bit different than turkeys or chicken or most domestic birds that we eat on a normal basis because they have tons of fat under the skin. A lot of people wouldn't realize how much fat is actually underneath there, but that's a good thing. That's what makes ducks such a good bird to eat, because the fat, especially if you're familiar with cooking pork butts or doing any type of barbecue with a lot of fatty pork meats and slow cooking them, you're gonna use your duck in the same format. You're gonna use that fat to your advantage. But in order to render it the proper way, lots of times when we're doing pork, they're cuts of meat and there's no skin attached, but we're gonna leave the duck skin still fully intact. But it's important to get through that skin, because as that fat begins to liquefy or render, there's no place for it to go at this point in time. So what we're going to do is just poke little holes throughout the entire duck to help that fat release, render, and come out. And that also, what that does is as the fat's seeping out from the skin, it also helps to crisp the skin, which is what you want as well. But anyway, I've got just a little corn poker there, and what we're going to do is just barely. You don't want to poke it into the meat, but just through the skin, and poke it all over like that. Okay, just all over the place. Pretty simple, every half an inch or so, here and there and everywhere. But you also want to do that on the bottom as well, actually on the back. I had it rest up, right? Make sure you get on the legs really well. But just make sure you have that done really good, and that ensures again that you are able to get all of the fat to render out. The next thing we're going to go to is, just like any of these birds, they have long necks. But I've noticed when I get a duck that the neck skin that is still attached is quite large. So you don't need that. I will also say this: the tunnel going from the neck into the cavity area is rather small. When you're doing chickens or doing turkeys, that cavity is pretty large, and when you're rinsing your duck out, water comes through it pretty quick. But on ducks, it doesn't do that. But anyway, there's a lot of extra skin here that we don't need. So just get you a pair of kitchen shears and cut that excess skin off. All right, just discard that. So another thing that I'll talk about here before I go any further, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Sorry, first video. But ducks take a little bit more care than, again, your other birds, because there's so much fat and you don't want any extra moisture while you're cooking. You tend to want to prepare your duck a little earlier than normal. Now, you don't have to. I've seen all kinds of different people do it different ways, but I like to let my duck dry as much as possible. So after I took the neck and the giblets, and yes, if you buy a domestic duck, there's a neck and giblets inside of it, just like a chicken or a turkey. But after you take all that out and you clean and rinse your cavity out and rinse your bird off, you want to make sure that it's as dry as it can be. So get a paper towel or a kitchen towel and dry the insides of it off, dry the outsides of it off. Some people even go on and poke it a day ahead of time and let even more moisture come out of it and then dry it off again. Some people salt it and let it set for a day and then dry it before. But I've just dried it from the initial rinse and went from there. So the next step after that is the stuffing. Duck does extremely well with citrus fruits. So I'm going to set our duck aside. Again, if you've not seen a duck, this is our lovely duck, right? Their legs are a little smaller than chickens. It's kind of funny, actually. My wife says it looks like me, because I'm kind of got short arms and short legs and a long body. But anyway, I'll put that over to the side. So ducks do very, very well with citrus fruits. And so I've got an assortment of lemons, limes, and regular navel oranges here. And what you want to do is you want to skin those before you stuff the bird with that and take all the peeling off, or peel them per se. Now this is how mine look after they're done. And I'm going to show you how to peel a fruit or a citrus fruit without using an old-fashioned peeler. Actually, I don't even know if I have an old-fashioned. Actually, yeah, right here I do. This is kind of what an old-fashioned peeler looks like. I don't like using these because I feel like it pulls too much of the meat out of the fruit. I've seen these used for years. This is actually a Pampered Chef one, but they're not really a favorite of mine. But I just like to take my regular old kitchen knife or chef knife, and the easiest way that I like to do it is to cut both ends off of your fruit. And that gives you a base to start with. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of rind on an orange, and it's kind of hard to mess this up. But just cut around, and you can see where you need to cut as you go. Now, while we're doing all of this, you need to preheat your oven to 250 degrees. And let's go on and do that now while we're finishing cutting up our orange. So now that we've got our orange completely peeled, the next step is to completely finish prepping our duck. Well, like I said, put your oven on 200 to 250 degrees. And you're thinking, that's extremely low. That's exactly right. We want to make sure that all of this fat renders, and this duck is going to actually cook somewhere between 5 to 7 hours in the oven. But the great thing about this recipe is that you don't have to babysit this. You don't have to continually watch it. You don't have to do anything to it, turn it and flip it. You're going to set it in the oven and let it cook for a long period of time. So at this point in time, all we're going to do as far as seasoning goes is take some kosher salt and some plain cracked, oh, can you see it there? Black pepper, all right? So salt and pepper your duck. Just salt it all over, all right? And you're going to say, well, the salt won't stick to it because there's no moisture. That's understandable. You might just want to rub it in a little bit. Okay? But what that salt will do will also help pull even more moisture out of it. Okay? But be very liberal with the salt. Just put as much on it as you want to. And then don't be afraid to also salt your inside cavity. Okay? Same thing with the pepper, not as liberal. Make sure you got a nice coating of pepper inside and out. That's all the seasoning you really need on the exterior. Now, a lot you're probably going to say, well, you're not going to get any flavor from that coming through the skin. And the idea here is actually, you'd be surprised, once that you've poked holes on your duck, a lot of that salt and pepper is actually going to float inside. So at this point, we got our cavity, right? We're going to stuff it with all of our citrus fruits, just as full as we can get it. And then once that's done, kind of take your flaps and fold them over like that to completely encase this. Now it's going to take several hours before you actually start smelling that citrus, but probably around the 4 to 5 hour mark you're going to start smelling that in your house. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So at this point, you want to put your your duck on a roasting pan or a sheet pan with baker's racks in it, because you don't want the duck to sit down in the fat as it's rendering and cooking off of it. So you want this to actually sit down in the oven or sit on the top of the pan and let the fat run off of it, and so you have a drip pan underneath. So that's what a roasting pan or baker's racks are for. And we're going to throw this in, and we'll see you in about 7 hours. It's been right at 7 hours, so we're going to open the oven, check our duck, and see if we're ready to proceed. The duck looks really good. As you can see, I used a rack over a glass baking dish, and I'm not sure how well you can see that, but there is a ton of duck fat that has rendered in the bottom of that pan. Just like your turkeys and your chicken, you want to make sure that you get to at least 165 degrees when you're done. All poultry should be done that way. I'm almost positive this is well beyond that, but you want to make sure that you get into the breast or the biggest muscle there and check your temperature. I'm not even sure if you guys can see that. Yeah, we're at 191 right there, 192. So that's far above where we need to be. So at this point, we want to finish off and crisp our skin. So what we're going to do is turn the oven up to 500 degrees for 15 minutes and let that skin get nice and crisp, and that's when we'll pull the duck out. So after you have browned your duck, you're going to pull it out of the oven and let it rest for 15 minutes. What did I mean by rest? That means you're going to let it set and literally just sit and not touch it for about 15 minutes. What that actually does is as it cools just a little bit, it helps the muscles to kind of release and also retain as much of their natural juices as possible that's not already flowed out. But while we're waiting for that to rest, we're going to make the sauce that goes with this. And like we talked about before, citrus fruits go very, very well with duck. But what we're going to do today is make a blackberry sauce, a blueberry sauce to go on top of this. I'm using a fresh blueberry jam that my wife made earlier in the summer when we picked blueberries. And I'm going to use about 4 tablespoons of that. You can use white wine with this. It's probably preferred. I don't have any with me today, so I'm actually just going to use chicken stock as the liquid for this, and then cornstarch to add for thickener as you go if you need to. But anyway, so I've got 4 tablespoons of our blueberry jam, and 1 cup of our chicken stock, and then we'll stir that up, heat it up, and that will be our sauce for the duck. It's pretty simple. Just bring it to a boil, and then as I said, thicken with cornstarch as needed. So after you let your meat rest for 15 minutes, it's time to carve and serve. As you can see, I've put together with some fried cabbage, carrots, and peas here. Got a nice duck leg with some duck breast meat underneath, and the blueberry sauce to go on top. So pretty successful time. This meat's going to be extremely tender. It's going to be extremely, it'll fall apart as you're carving it. So hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching the first video, and if you like, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hope to see you again. Thanks. Bye.